Hi guys and welcome to my channel. Today we are creating 22 DIYs for 2022 that you must try. Let's get started. Today I'm going to be making two natural rustic Valentine's decor DIYs, and the supplies that I'm using are picture frame, this wooden heart, and some piece of material fabric that I've had left over from a different project. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to stain it with this stain that I got from a dollar store and more. I've used it for several projects already and I absolutely love the look of it. I use a rag to apply the stain. I do try with the brush, but the rag just works so much better in my opinion. So I let that dry and then I move on to my frame, and I'm trying to cut out this fabric, but the lines weren't straight, so I just want to make sure that the line is straight so it fits perfectly and I can measure it perfectly inside the frame. So I'm using a permanent marker, just a black one, just to go over and mark off where I want it cut. I am using a rotary cutter just to cut that, and this works so much better than scissors, and I picked it up at that dollar store and more. I am located in Canada, in case if you are wondering where that store is. I am using a tacky glue to glue the fabric down, and I'm spreading the glue with the foam brush. So the last thing that I do is I hot glue the heart into the middle of this frame. And here it is, and I think it turned out absolutely stunning. For my next DIY, I will be using some red acrylic paint, this love sign that had come from Dollar Tree, this sign that I have used the letters for a different project, so I was left over with a heart and some different types of paper. I've got the wrapping paper that looks like birch, and then just some scrapbook paper. The first thing that I want to do is I want to use these stripes that are already on the heart as a guide, because I want to cut out my craft paper, my scrapbook paper, as well as my wrapping paper into those stripes. I am using a paper cutter for the best straight line. And again, I'm using that tacky glue to glue these on. If this is your first time stopping by my channel, welcome. My name is Sonia, and like I said, this is my DIY channel. I also have a cooking channel and a cleaning decorating channel, and the links will be in the description box. On this channel, you will find tons of different DIY projects using dollar store materials, but not limited to dollar store materials, and also some thrift store upcycles, as well as furniture makeovers. So if this is something that is up your alley, I would love it if you consider subscribing and joining my YouTube family. Right now I am posting minimum 3 times a week, so I give you tons of different DIY inspirations. So please go ahead and press that red subscribe button. It's free, and don't forget to turn on your notifications by pressing that little bell beside the subscribe button. That way you will be notified whenever my new DIYs are up. And I would encourage you to go and check out my other channels if you like cooking or cleaning or decorating. I showcase a lot of these DIYs in my home decor over on my home channel. And also check me out on Instagram. There is tons of daily happenings and future DIY, upcoming DIY glances. So make sure you head on over there and check me out. The links are all in the description box. And if you like free printables, I also have a blog where I share a lot of free printables. Once I was finished with the scrapbook paper and all of the little pieces were trimmed off, I move on to my wrapping paper, my birch wrapping paper. I have been using this wrapping paper quite a bit in my latest projects with the winter decors and Valentine's Day decor. I just find that it's such a not neutral palette, like the look of it, and it goes really well with everything. We are redecorating our basement, and I've been really using the neutral colors like this, and I love my centerpiece that I made for my that I'm using on my coffee table, but I will be sharing that in a separate video on my new decor over in my living room over on my home channel. So stay tuned for that.
Can't get enough of this. Being with you is like never-ending sunshine. Feels like everything stops for a while when we look into each other's eyes. How could I ever let you go now when you're looking like that? Can't get enough of this. Being with you is like never-ending sunshine. Your high heels on, and I'm wearing my worn out jeans.
I really do enjoy using this rotary cutter. I think it's just so much easier to cut with it than the scissors. I just don't have good scissors, like I mentioned before, and I can't wait for the stores to open up so I can actually go and get a great pair, because I got tons of recommendations from you guys from my last video when I talked about the scissor issue.
Feels like everything stops for a while when we look into each other's eyes. How could I ever let you go now when you're looking like that? Can't get enough of this. Being with you is a never-ending sunshine. A never-ending sunshine. You're gonna be the girl that I end up calling on. Can't get enough of this. Being with you is like never-ending sunshine. Feels like everything stops for a while when we look into each other's eyes. How could I ever let you go now when you're looking like that? Can't get enough of this. Being with you is a never-ending sunshine.
I think these two different designs really complement each other and give it that almost like French provincial look a little bit to it, which is what I love. Now for these love letters, I end up cutting them just so they're all separate, so I can put them on easier and set them up the way I want to on top of the heart. So I just trim everything, make sure everything there's no little pieces of wood sticking out, and I paint them with I actually changed my mind and ended up painting them with light pink, just very soft pink, and go over it with some white just to soften it up even more instead of going with the red. I also end up using a little bit of spun gold just to go over it. over the letters. It just gives it that little bit extra of the rustic look, and I love the way they turned out. I did end up making the heart a little bit darker, just so it stands out a little bit more, and then I blend all the paints with a rag. Now once I put them on, I still felt that they weren't really popping out, so I glued them on first, and then I took my black acrylic paint and a very thin brush, and I'm actually using a lot of the makeup brushes that I have that I don't use, and just went over the edges with the black, and this just made the letters pop out that much more. And then I took that same black acrylic paint and just went into the little crevices between the papers and just dry brushed it a little bit all over the place, just to make it a little bit more rustic again. I absolutely love the way this one turned out. Guys, and welcome to another Dollar Tree DIY. Today I'm going to be making 3 different lanterns using these picture frames that I had picked up. So I picked up a 4x6, 4 of them. Then I picked up 5x7, 4 of them. And then the super long ones are 4x6, 3 frames of little 4x6. So I'm not quite sure what the size of the actual frame is. And then I also have these sticks they're actually for s'mores, and then I also have the little bamboo skewers that I'm going to be using, and you will need some paint and some hot glue. The paints that I will be using are black, brown, white, and cream colored. I'm going to be layering paint, but this time I'm layering acrylic paint, not chalk paint. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take these apart, remove all the plastic off, and then the backing off, because I will not be using any of that stuff. I am just using the frame. To show you the back, I will be removing obviously the cardboard part and the little things that bend in. I will be using, you can use pliers. I didn't have pliers on hand, so I just used my wire cutters and they work just as good. But I will also be saving that cardboard for future projects, as well as the glass. And then the little metal pieces that you hang, I will be keeping those as well, because you never know when you might need them to hang stuff up. So the total cost per lantern was, well, if you're in US, $4. If you're in Canada, it will cost you $5, because our Dollar Tree charges $1.25. All the other supplies I've had on hand, and I'm sure you can find most of the supplies laying around in your home as well. I love creating these lanterns because I love lanterns and decorating with them, and I will actually be sharing a decorate with me video on my home channel on Monday, so stay tuned for that. So once I had removed everything, I am measuring out my s'mores stick. I am using the s'more sticks for the larger frames because the other ones weren't long enough, and I cut them to size, and then I make sure that they go straight in the middle by again measuring, and the middle sticks I just measure and cut into 2 pieces, and again I just measure the sides as well, just to make sure that they are right in the middle. And then I use a hot glue gun to glue them on. So guys, we've been having such cold weather. I cannot wait for the spring to come and I can actually maybe open my windows, air out. Currently all of my windows are frozen and I can't open them at all upstairs in my bedroom or anything, and both dogs sleep in our bed and I always feel like it's so stuffy. They don't sleep in our bed, they sleep in our bedroom, but I feel that our bedroom's so stuffy because there's four persons or sleeping in the room. I can't believe I just called my dogs people, but they are my people. So how is the temperature where you guys are at? Is the spring looking like spring almost, or is it still really cold? We've had minus 26 this week, so it is warmer today, but it's still, I think, minus 13 or minus 16 this morning. Repeat the same process for the rest of them. And once they were all assembled, I put the lantern together by gluing it together, and just make sure that I am putting the inside of the frames facing each other and the outside of the frames to be on the outside. And I'm just using the little clamps to hold it all in place. I repeat the same process for the rest of the frames, but this time for the smaller frames I am using the bamboo skewers because they are shorter and they fit a little bit better on the smaller frames. So once all the frames were finished and the lanterns were assembled, I move on to painting the frames. Like I said, I use cream, brown, black, and white, and I am just layering it, starting with cream, doing a light coat, and then I'll move on to brown, and then I finish off with white. So here it is, all painted, and I have actually now decided to add the top for it. I wasn't going to do this, but I felt like it needed something else. And I had these chipboard squares from Dollarama. And now these only fit on the smallest one. So I used it for the smallest one. Stay tuned to see what I use for the larger ones. And I had glued it to the top of the lantern. So to add a bit more decorations to the lantern, I went ahead and got these lids. I've had these boxes left over from Christmas, and I just hot glued the lid on top. And then on top of the lid, I had a couple pieces of stacking blocks left, and the ones that I'm using for the smallest lantern, I have cut in half, so I'm using 2 halves for that. And I hot glued them to the top as well. And now it's time to paint it. I started off with the brown, but then I felt like I needed to go a little darker, so I followed with black. And then I went back with brown again. And then I followed kind of the same step of layering the paint like I did on the bottom of the lantern. So I ended up using a sponge brush to sponge on and a little brush to get into crevices. As you can see, the little square doesn't fit, so I have decided to use a piece of scrap cardboard that I've had laying around, and I just measured it, traced it on the lantern onto the cardboard with a pencil and cut it out. And that worked out really good. And then I followed the same step as for the smaller lantern, except the little stacking blocks, I am using the two full pieces instead of half pieces. So now I have decided to actually just blend all the paints together and sponge them on. This actually worked out a little bit easier and a little bit faster than the last process where I was layering paint, and the look ended up being the same. So here they are. I think they turned out absolutely stunning. I think they're gonna look great in my decor, and I can't wait to decorate them and share them. I'm creating a DIY dollar store window, decorative window, and I'm using this canvas from Dollarama and these wood dowels from Dollarama as well. I thought I needed way more, but I did end up using just one, not even a full one package. I will also use the black acrylic paint, some paint brushes. I actually tried a couple different ones because that one didn't work very well, and then hot glue. So let's get started. The first thing obviously is to take apart this canvas. I absolutely love using these canvases for their frames. I think their frames are great for signs and obviously as a window frame. They have a little detailed on the one side and they are flat on the other side. I would also like to mention that today's video is a very exciting video because it is part of a Pinterest challenge that I have put together for any creator that would like to join in. So there will be a playlist that you can go check out in the description box where it will include any other creators that were participating in this Pinterest challenge. So what a Pinterest challenge is, you find some inspiration on DIY inspiration on Pinterest and you recreate it. My inspiration were these windows, well, the one window, particularly the black one here, and I had found it under a farmhouse mental inspiration board on Pinterest, so I decided to recreate it. And if you are a creator who is participating, don't forget to link up your video under creators link in the description box. So sometimes these staples aren't the easiest thing to remove, but since I wasn't using this side, I decided to just leave them there, and I cut off the canvas instead of trying to pull the staples out. So here's that detail that I was telling you about. This one had a tiny little crack in the corner, but that's okay. I made it work anyways. I think it just added a little bit of that antique look to it. So now I move on to using these dowels, and the one thing that I'm going to tell you about this project is planning and figuring out. This is what took me probably the longest, is to add that design and try and figure out what was the best way, how many sticks to use, how to space them out, what size to cut them. So I kind of played around with it until I figured out how many sticks I was gonna need in the middle. And then once I kind of had that idea, I measured the width, and then I had divided it by I think I wanted to add 6 of them, and then I just spaced it all out to see how I would fit them. And this actually worked out really well. They were spaced out evenly. Now it was time to figure out the angles and how far to cut the stick, and then I realized that it was actually the best way to cut it is right in half. That had worked perfect. Now I also needed to cut these long sticks down to make them shorter, so it created a triangle. So once I had it all cut, I started with gluing the angles the way I wanted them to be. And then I built on from there. I was looking for a tape so I can tape the thing down, and I actually used the paper to mark off where I wanted the sticks to start and end, the middle ones. So if you can put your DIY on top of some sort of a paper, so you can use it as almost like a stencil. So then I moved on and repeated the process on all of them. I'm not sure if you guys have had a chance to see my other window frame that I have built, I think last year at some point, and I will link it in at the end for you to check it out. It is a very popular window for everyone to watch, and it was made out of dollar store frames, and it turned out really, really good. I actually use it with some pictures in my home. Now that the middle parts were assembled, I went ahead and added a little bit more glue just on top, and then I moved on to gluing that part to the frame. Now with me gluing it on top of the paper, it did get glued on the paper a little bit, so I just had to remove it off before I started gluing it to the frame.
Just know that I'm with you. Just know that I'm with you through it all. And I'm gonna be there whenever you win or if you fall. I know that we will make it through the storm. 'Cause you and me been fighters since we were born. It's all over our bodies and hearts. Yeah, you and me been
I flip it and then glue do the same process on the other side, just so it is a little bit more sturdier.
worry about a thing. You get what you're given, but it's never too late to spread your wings. Oh, I know that we will make it through the storm. 'Cause you and me been fighters since we were born. It's all over our bodies.
Once the glue had completely dried, I moved on to painting it, and I used a couple different brushes. The original brush didn't work. Then I used a smaller brush for the crevices, and I thought I was going to use it for the middle sticks. But it was taking way too long, so I ended up using a smaller foam brush, and that one worked really well on the sticks, but not so much on the frame. So for the frame, I ended up using a bristle brush, which worked really well.
I know that we will make it through the storm. 'Cause you and me been fighters since we were born. It's all over our bodies and hearts. Yeah, you.
And you do want to paint both sides, flipping it over and painting it on the other side, because you don't want any of that wood to show when you're looking at it from a different angles.
From the start, yeah, been fighters right from the start. Been fighters right from the start.
So here it is. I absolutely love the way it turned out. I love the layered look, and I needed a couple other windows or window frames, decorative window frames, to add to my antique window on my fireplace, and I think this is perfect. I'm going to be creating almost bit of a dupe, but using some trash that I had laying around the house, combined with some dollar store materials. So I have these David's tea containers because I love drinking their loose tea, and I always end up with having tons of them. And then I'm going to use some of this burlap ribbon, some of this greenery, as well as this basket. Now the basket, the greenery, and the burlap had come from Dollarama. I will also going to be using some black spray paint, as well as black and white acrylic paint and a sponging brush, along with some twine and hot glue. So the very first thing that I'm going to do is spray paint this basket, because I wanted to give it a bit of a rustic look. So I'm going to spray paint it black, but I wanted to tone it down a little bit with some gray. Unfortunately, I didn't have any gray. I only have silver, so I made some gray by combining the white and black acrylic paint. So once I was finished spray painting it, I moved on to sponging the gray paint on before the spray paint even had a chance to dry. That way I can blend it well together. And this gave me that rustic silver aluminum look, to kind of a tin look that I was going for. So once I was finished with sponging it on, I put it aside to dry and I moved on to my tins. I have so many of these tins and I have done so many different DIYs with them. I can link it all down at the end for you to check out the other stuff that I made using these tins. So for this project, I'm just measuring out my burlap ribbon to see how long I'll need it to go twice around the tin. And then I bought this twine. That was the only twine they had at the dollar store. I think it was in a garden supplies, but it came in this nice little jar, which I thought was kind of cute, and came with scissors that I struggled to use. But anyway, so I measure out my burlap and cut three pieces that are the same length. If this is your first time stopping by, welcome. I'm so glad that you stopped by. My name is Sonia and this is my DIY channel where you will find trash to treasure makeovers, furniture upcycles, and dollar store DIYs. So if this is something that interests you, I would love it if you consider pressing the subscribe button and a notification bell and becoming a part of my YouTube family. And if you're returning, thank you so much for your continuing support. It means the world to me. I was wrapping these tins with a double layer because I didn't want any of the stickers to show that are on this tin because they are impossible to take off. So I figured it would be much easier to add the burlap ribbon in a double layer. That way I'm not wasting too much time trying to remove those stickers. Once I was finished with gluing the ribbon on, I moved on to adding a twine. I just wrapped it once around. You can also double up with the twine as well. I think that would look pretty too, but I just went with one layer of twine. And then I also wanted to fold the lip of the burlap on top down, so I gave it a couple slits in two different spots just so I could fold it down a little bit easier, and I think this just gave it a bit of a different look, and I kind of it was a look that I was kind of going for. I forgot to mention that when you're gluing that burlap on, be very careful because with all the holes on a burlap, you can easily burn yourself. So if you have finger protectors or that makeup applicator, use it, because otherwise you will burn your fingers. I managed to burn them even with using the applicator. So once my basket was dry and my tins were ready, I just placed them inside and decorated them with the greenery that I picked up at the Dollarama. I absolutely love these picks, greenery picks. I use them all the time in all sorts of different decor throughout my home. I stick them inside garlands, I stick them in vases. I made wreaths with them. They are so versatile and they look so good. And they are only, I think, $1.50 each bunch. And they would also look really good if you're making like a fall herb garden. Some of them look like real herbs, so that would look really, really good too if you don't have enough sunlight to actually have a real herb garden in your kitchen, like myself. So here it is. I think it's going to be a great addition to my spring decor in my home. I'm bringing you two Dollar Tree DIYs. For the first one, I will be using these candle holders that came from Dollar Tree. They're the ceramic ones. They came in black and white. I picked up most of the black ones. And then I'm going to use Annie Sloan's Cocoa Chalk Paint and white wax finishing. Well, it's a antiquing wax, I guess. As well as some hot glue and some Gorilla Glue for more permanent finish. And I also you need a brush and a rag. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to assemble these candlesticks. I'm going to make 3 different sizes of candelabras. For the first one, I'm just going to use 1. For the second one, I will use 2. And for the third one, I will use 3. Now, I will add the Gorilla Glue on the outside rim of the candle holder. And then in the middle, I will put the hot glue. So the hot glue will help it with kind of helping me work on it while the Gorilla Glue sets in, because Gorilla Glue takes a couple hours to set in. I also remove these sticklers on the bottom of them, so that way they just don't interfere with the gluing. Absolutely love how versatile these candlesticks are. I have made raised trays with them. You can put glass on top of them. You can just use them as is. I mean, there are so many different possibilities with them, and I absolutely love them. And I always have a couple on hand for my DIYs. Now that the candelabras are done assembling, I will let them cure, and while they're curing, I will move on to the single one by painting it, and I'm going to paint it with this Annie Sloan Cocoa. I absolutely love this paint. I want to give them a bit of a faux wood look, but more of a weathered wood look, and so I give the candelabras a light coat of paint in the cocoa, and I really want to accentuate the brush strokes. I want them to show, and I want some of the black to show as well. And so obviously I am just doing one coat, and I pretty much just dip the paintbrush once into the paint and paint the candelabras with that same paint over and over. And like I said, I want the brush strokes to show, and I want the black to show through. If this is your first time stopping by, welcome. My name is Sonia, and this is my DIY channel where you will find lots of Dollar Tree DIYs as well as some furniture makeovers and trash to treasure upcycles. So if this is something that you enjoy watching, make sure you press the subscribe button and a notification bell. And if you're feeling adventurous, check out my description box because you will find my other two channels as well as Instagram page and a link to my blog where I share a lot more than just what I do on these YouTube channels, so you might actually find things you enjoy. And don't forget to check out free printables that are over on my blog for anything that you might need. Once the paint had fully dried, I move on to applying the white wax. This is not a finishing wax, it's more of an antiquing wax, and I apply a generous amount all over the candlesticks. So here I am showing you a bit of a closer look just so you can see. I want the white to really show, and it kind of goes into the little grooves and between the little bristle brush strokes that I left from the paint. The white wax just gives it that little extra dimension and the depth and texture that these candelabras needed. So before I move on to the other two, just to kind of show you what it looks like with the white wax, I absolutely love the difference between just paint and white wax. It just gives it so much more texture look that in my opinion, these candelabras needed. I love using this wax. I've done many different furniture makeovers with this wax. I will have that playlist linked in the description box if you want to check it out. I love the way it gives it that weathered wood look. So here they all are. For my next project, I'm using these different 3 galvanized pots that I've had on hand. I'm pretty sure they all came from Dollarama, but I know that Dollar Tree carries them as well. And they have that galvanized look to them. They're just not stainless steel. So I wanted to make them a little bit French, I guess. I've been loving the French finish. I did actually last year make French terracotta pots with similar printables, so I will link the free printables in a description box if you want to give it a try. So for this project you will need the pots, the printables, the tape, some water and Mod Podge. So I get started with just figuring out what design I'm going to place on each pot. I love all of them, and it was really hard for me to decide which ones to use. But I figured I will use up the rest of them and some other DIYs for sure within a year. I love this, like I said, this repeat myself again, this French look. So once I had made a decision of which ones I'm going to be using, I cut them out. And you want to cut them out as close as possible to the design, leaving as little white as possible. So once I cut them out, I cut a tape to the size of the cutout, and then I just trim it a little bit more, and I press down the tape onto the design and throw it into the water. And I repeat this for all of them. While they are sitting in water, I move on to creating little like handles, hoop handles with this rope, and I'm just going to use the rope that's on this one for all of them. For the two smaller pots, I create hoops, and for the large pot, I actually just glue the rope on top of the handle that's already there. If you decide to do this project and you decide to glue this rope on top of the handle, make sure you protect your fingers from burning yourself. I am notorious in burning my fingers all the time, but this time I was very careful and I managed not to burn myself. You could also take this rope and wrap it around. It would probably be a bit easier, but I just wanted this look. I wanted some of the galvanized handle to show, but I also wanted the rope look. So I think this was the best of both worlds. So once they soaked for a while, you take them out and you rub off all the white off. It should come off fairly easy. You can dip it back in the water and do it over again. So now it's time to apply the the little designs. You want to make sure that they are completely dry. There's no wetness on them, so that way they will stick to the pots easily. If they don't stick, which you will see my last one, I had a little bit of trouble just because of the grooves and everything, you can apply Mod Podge on the bottom of it and on top of it. For the rest of them, I managed to stick it on without actually any Mod Podge on the bottom. However, for a bit of a longer life, I do apply Mod Podge over top of them, just to make sure they stay on there for a longer period of time. So here they are. I absolutely love how Farmhouse Vintage they look. I think they're going to be great addition to my spring decor. I am starting with some of Easter crafts, Easter DIYs, and for the first project I'm using these colored large eggs I picked up at Dollar Tree, some of this buffalo check material that I had left over from Christmas, and then some jute rope. So I am just cutting out strips of this material fabric to wrap around one of the eggs. I love the look of buffalo check on the eggs, and I thought I could recreate it by adding the strips of this fabric onto an egg. It was a very messy process because I was using Mod Podge to do it. First thing I do is I just add a little bit of glue onto the opening and hold it together. That way the egg doesn't come apart while I'm adding Mod Podge. The Mod Podge that I'm using is matte. You could totally use glossy as well. Matte is just what I had on hand. Oh, I added a little bit more glue because it was coming apart on the one end. And then I take a foam brush and apply the Mod Podge and then just wrap the fabric all the way around. And then I just keep working on this until the whole egg is covered. Once I have covered the whole egg with fabric, I move on to applying Mod Podge all over it. For my next egg, I am using that jute rope, and I start with a big dollop of glue right on the tip of an egg, and then I also glue the egg together so that way it doesn't come apart while I'm working on it. So once I have that glue on the top, I add the tip of the rope, and then carefully, not to burn myself, try and wrap it all the way around the egg. But you want to have the start set, that glue set before you start moving, because the rope will move on you if it's not completely glued. I also ended up putting a little bit on top for that extra protection, so it's, extra sturdiness or extra gluing capability. And then once that was all set, I started wrapping the rope around and putting glue at certain spots so it stays in place.
Can't get enough of this. Being with you is like never-ending sunshine. Feels like everything stops for a while when we look into each other's eyes. How could I ever let you go now when you're looking like that? Can't get enough of this. Being with you is a never-ending sunshine. You got your high heels on, and I'm wearing my worn-out jeans. What could go wrong? Sipping on a beer, sing along to our favorite songs. All I want is you. You make my world spin round and round. Sometimes I don't know what to do, 'cause my heart starts racing.
Once you come to the end, you just cut off the rest of the rope off and make sure you have enough glue in that at the bottom so your rope stays put. I absolutely love the way this egg turned out. I think it's very farmhouse rustic look, and I think it's gonna look great in my decor. These are actually great for tier trays if you want to add them to your tier trays. I think they would look really good on them. For my next project, I am using the same fabric, also a burlap ribbon, and some of these die-cut eggs that had come from Dollar Tree, and die-cut bunnies. So I go ahead and trace the bunnies on here, but I had a bit of a moment here where I did end up tracing them, and then I thought, oh, I can't actually do it this way because the bunny is the opposite, but all I should have done is flip the bunny over, but nevertheless I made it work. Like I said, it's just one of those moments where the brain just doesn't work. If this is your first time stopping by my channel, welcome. My name is Sonia, and this is my DIY channel where you'll find lots of seasonal Dollar Tree DIYs as well as everyday DIYs, some trash to treasure makeovers, and furniture upcycles. If this is something that you think you'd love to watch, make sure you press the subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss out any of my future uploads. And if you're feeling adventurous, head on over to my description box where you will find links to all of my other social medias as well as my other channels that I have.
If you believe in love, how will I feel it? If you believe in me, how will you let
So next I move on to gluing the fabric on, and as you can see, this is where that moment was, but like I said, nevertheless I did make it work, and I just trim off the excess fabric so that way it looks like the fabric was always there.
higher and higher? I'm gonna raise the flag. Fire oh fire, send out a flare to find. Give me a reason. I'm gonna send.
So I can't wait for Easter. We're gonna have some time off and spend it with with my family. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like I will be able to spend it with my extended family, but we'll still make it work with just the four of us. What are some of the Easter traditions that you guys have? We usually eat fish on Fridays and then have a big meal on a Sunday, which I'm pretty sure everybody does. One of the traditions that my family has, they make this pork jelly soup that I absolutely love, but nobody else does. I don't think, no, I think my sister likes it, but I know her husband doesn't, and I know my husband doesn't, and neither do my kids. Do you have traditions like that your family likes, but your other family members don't? I would love to know. And I know that jelly soup sounds gross, but trust me, it tastes delicious, and I do only have it once a year.
You never know what we will find behind the line, behind the line.
So after I was finished with the bunnies, I moved on to the eggs, and I dressed the eggs in the burlap ribbon that I got at Dollarama, and pretty much followed the same process where I glued it on the ribbon on and then just trimmed it off. I actually ended up first I used my scissors, and I'm using those scissors that came with my twine that I showed in my last video, because they are absolutely amazing. I hope they stay that way. But then I decided that might be actually even easier to use my rotary cutter just to cut around the eggs. So that is what I did for the other two eggs.
Let us run. Oh, we can run the world.
I'm so looking forward to spring coming. By February, I've just about had enough of snow and cold weather, and I just need the sunshine and green grass. We are still covered under the snow, but hoping that that will go away soon enough, and we will start seeing grass and blooming of the spring flowers. I can't wait for that. Let me know what the weather's like where you are at. I know some parts of the U.S. got hit heavily with snow. I think we got a bit of that here in Canada as well, but I know in Europe some places are at 22 degrees Celsius, which I can't wait for that weather. I'm not crazy about too hot of a summer, but I do like around 20-degree weather. So once I had my eggs covered in burlap, I cut off a long piece of twine and started gluing the eggs and bunnies, alternating, because I was making a bit of a wreath, garland. Easter garland. Now you can wrap this depending on the size of your tier tray. You can also drop it down on a tier tray if you'd like. I've seen that, but I think I will be using it on my fireplace. Next week I will be decorating my tier trays for spring and Easter, so make sure you tune on to that. It will be over on my home channel, and it is a collab, so there will be tons of tier tray inspirations for you. If you love decorating tier trays as much as I do, make sure you check it out. The video will go live on Wednesday, and like I said, it will be on my home channel. And now I move on to my next project, and I'm using these styrofoam balls and these little wedding cups that I picked up at Dollar Tree. They're the little metal tins or aluminum tins, and then you're gonna need some white felt, and I'm also going to use some deer moss and some pom-poms. So I wanted to wrap these styrofoam balls with some deer moss, and I thought I should use a Mod Podge, but it really did not work. So I moved on to using hot glue. However, I always recommend when using a hot glue over top of styrofoam, use a very low heat, because first you're gonna burn yourself and second you're gonna melt the styrofoam. But I worked really fast. So that way I would not burn myself and not too much of the styrofoam ball would get melted. Once I had it fully covered and it looked the way I wanted to, I gave the deer moss a little trim, a little haircut. Then I end up gluing it inside of a bucket, but I wanted half of it to show through, and this worked out really well. Actually, the styrofoam before the deer moss did fit right inside of it, and now it sat nicely on top. And then I add this giant fluffy pom-pom for, as you can probably already tell, for a tail. And then I cut out 2 triangles out of this felt, and I didn't realize it was out of the shot, but anyways, I cut 2 triangles for the ear, fold it at the bottom, and hot glue it to the top. This was a very simple DIY, and I think it looks so cute, and like I said, I think it's going to look great on my tier trays.
Break my heart, it's already broken from the start. Short-lived love story. Maybe I do need to worry. Maybe I should be afraid of hurting you. But you can't.
Today I'm bringing you some high-end dollar store spring DIY, so let's get started. The very first one, I am using this artist panel. It is a wood panel and came from your dollar store or more for $2.50. And then this, I think it's called Copenhagen Blue acrylic paint, and the wood gel stain. Now the wood gel stain came from the same dollar store, but the acrylic paint came from Dollarama. So the first thing that I do is I stain the little frame kinda that's around it with the wood stain. I am located in Canada, so a lot of my supplies will come from dollar store, such as Dollarama, your dollar store with more, or Dollar Tree. Once I am finished staining it, and I use a rag to do so, I will move on to painting. I love using this stain. I have used it for many projects similar to this one because I love making signs, and this stain goes on so easy, and I've had it for a while now, and I still have about half a bottle left, so it does go a long way. I added a little bit of black acrylic paint into the blue just to darken it up, because I was finding that the Copenhagen blue was just a little too bright. So once I'm finished painting with the sponge brush, I just go and fill in with the crevices with a little tiny brush. While that's drying, I have created a design over on my Cricut machine and cut it out on vinyl. I will have that design linked in the description box for you to download yourself if you wish to. It is over on my Etsy shop. Now I do the weeding and the transferring. This did take a little bit of, I should say, elbow grease because of the size of it, but I think it's so well worth it. I did find that cutting the vinyl into smaller pieces helped with weeding it out and getting it off a little bit easier. The transfer tape that I'm using does come from Dollarama, and it is just clear shelf liner. So once I transfer it on, I realized that I'm not sure what happened to my end. So I end up adding that with some of my chalk marker that I picked up at Dollar Tree. I also use that for some other stuff like Establish because that was way too small to cut out. I'm pretty sure this sign you can find at Hobby Lobby or maybe even Kirkland's in US. I just love, well, probably not the exact same sign, but a very similar one. And I absolutely love the way the white vinyl looks against this blue, and with a wood frame, it's just I think the sign looks really pretty. And this is a type of a sign that you don't necessarily only have to use at springtime, you can also use it during summer. I think because of the blue, for me that's a summer color as well. So here it is, and I absolutely love the way it turned out. I have used some Cricut Design Space Design and cut it out on my super long mat. And I was using actually Dollar Tree vinyl that they have just started carrying at Dollar Tree. It's a Cricut vinyl. It is a permanent vinyl, and I have to say it worked really well for this project. I was quite impressed. I've heard some rumors that it's not very good, so I can't really say how it works for actually putting it on objects. I was using it more as a stencil and tossing it after, so I'm not sure how it would work otherwise, but it worked really well for this. And I have picked up this mat at Dollarama for $4. It is a brownish color, it's not fully black. And then I take the vinyl off very carefully because I am using the big piece as, like I said, as a stencil, and I'm actually going to put transfer tape on the other stuff and keep it for maybe a future project. If this is your first time stopping by my channel, I would love it if you considered subscribing and joining my YouTube family. I do dollar store DIYs often, as well as all these Cricut projects, furniture makeovers, and thrift store upcycles. So make sure that notification bell is on so you don't miss out any of my uploads. I am just adding these little pieces that I really should have welded together with the little lines on my design space, so that way I wouldn't have to do this, but because the design is fairly big, it wasn't too hard to do. I decided to use spray paint to color in. I am using white chalky spray paint and then just yellow spray paint. However, I should have added some tape or something around this vinyl so that way the paint doesn't get onto the mat. I did get some on, and I just used some cleaner just to rub it off, and most of it did come off. So once I was done spraying it, I immediately removed it, and as you can see, I splattered a little bit in a corner. Not a big deal. And then I just removed the little pieces from the middle. And then the last thing that I do is I spray it with a clear matte protector, so that way when you're stepping on it and walking on it, it does not come off. I did this for my Halloween mat and it worked out pretty good.
And leave it all behind. It's gonna be okay, no matter come what may. I'm gonna set things straight. Tomorrow I let my worries fade, let them sweep away. There'll be another day tomorrow. I keep repeating the same mistakes.
So here it is, and I think it's going to look really good on my front porch for the spring season. I'm working on Dollar Tree DIYs, and I will show you how to create easy Dollar Tree shutters and easy wreath tutorial. I am using some Dollar Tree items and some trash to treasures, things that I had laying around the house. So these small wreaths are from Dollar Tree. The florals are just odds and ends that I had laying around the house. I have some paint sticks, stir sticks, and these Dollar Tree signs that I bought around Easter, meant to use it at Easter time but never got around to it. I will also going to be using some Annie Sloan chalk paint in white, as well as some black wax. My paint was really dry and thick, so I just threw in this stirring ball, and I'm going to add a little bit of water just to thin it out, that way I can still use it instead of just throwing it out. So once you have your water in there and that ball, you just shake it up, and the ball helps to stir up the paint, and it really works well. Now I start working on the project, and I remove this carrot and I keep it for next year because it has a really nice texture. It's almost dimensional because it is laying on a piece of foam. And I also remove the staples at the back using a screwdriver and the rope, and the other one I just snip the other side and pull it through. I take a ruler and I use it to score with a craft knife. Just I'm trying to give it some texture. Once I paint it and add the wax, you will see how what I mean by texture. So I just cut straight lines, and then I also kind of scratch it in random places with a knife. The straight lines are to give it almost an effect that there are 3 pieces of wood there instead of just one solid piece. I also cut these stir sticks into 4 equal pieces. I use this little saw, handy saw that I had gotten at a dollar store and more, and it works really, really well. Now it's time to paint the wood, and I paint the little pieces as well as the big pieces with this old white, and I give it a good coat. I want a solid coverage this time around. While the paint is drying, I am going to move on to working on my wreaths, because this hop and collaboration is called April Showers Bring May Flowers. So I am using some florals and greenery. I am using a wire to just tighten this garland that I have gotten at Hobby Lobby, but it's really hard to work with because the little branches all get stuck together. But so I decided to use it, make it in a wreath. That way I use it once and it stays on it for good, I hope. Anyway, so I just secure it in a couple different places, and then I take the little odds and ends from my other greenery and add wherever I need fillers. Once my green florals are the way I want them, I add these little yellow and purple flowers just here and there to add that punch of color. I really like the way these little flowers look. I've used them in several different projects throughout my house, and I think they're a great springtime colors to add to your spring decor. So I finished one, and I will be making 2 of them, but I'm not gonna bore you with 2 exactly same tutorials. So now my wood is dry, and I'm going to hot glue these pieces to the bottom and the top because I want them to resemble the shutters. Once that's done, I move on to using my Annie Sloan black wax. You could probably use paint, black paint as well. I didn't actually have black paint, but acrylic paint, but I did have the black wax, so I decided to use that. And I'm just using a very thin brush and applying this black wax into all those little cuts that I have made, just to darken them up. And I use like I said, a thin brush, and then you will see I take a rag and rub it in. And you want your rag to be lint free, it just works better. So at this point, I'm still not done. As you can see, it does not look all that great. So I go over it with dry brushing the white that I applied earlier over top of it. And this just softens up the black, but it does leave so you can see the grooves. And I think this gives it that weathered shutter look that I was going for. So I repeat the same process on the other shutter as well. Once they have dried, which didn't take long at all, I screw in the little S hooks just so I can hang up my wreaths. And I do it kind of quarter way down, so that way some of the shutter still shows once the wreath is hanging on it. So here they are without the wreath, just so you can have a nice look, and then I show you with the wreath. Is a watering can that I had picked up at Dollarama for $4. I'm sure you can find any watering can would work. I give this watering can a light spray of chalked paint by Rust-Oleum, and it's white, and it is a very light spray. Some of the gray almost shows through, which is what I was trying to achieve. And once this the one coat, which is all I'm doing, is on, I let it fully dry before I move on to my next step. I am using my Cricut Maker for my next step, and I had cut out two different images, a leafy border and a bee, and I'm going to transfer it onto the watering can. So here it is. Just try to center it as much as you can, and just like with any transfer, you want to rub it so that way it transfers onto the watering can when you are lifting the transfer tape. My transfer tape that I'm using is a clear shelf liner from Dollar Tree. I repeat the same process with the bee. The bee was a little bit finicky, and the bee is available on Cricut Design Space. The little border I had made myself, and I just put these two together. As you can see, I lost a leg, which I end up going back into and taking it off. If this is your first time stopping by my channel, my name is Sonia and you're watching my DIY channel, where you will find tons of trash to treasure makeovers, furniture makeovers, as well as Dollar Tree DIY. So make sure your notification bell and your subscribe buttons are both turned on, so that way you don't miss out any of my future uploads. So I think this turned out really, really cute. I love that look, that vintage farmhouse, shabby chic look that this design gave it. But wait, I'm not completely done. There is the other side, and on the other side I will be adding some stencil. This stencil came from a local store and I've used it in several DIYs in the past, and I am using some Athenian black paint from Annie Sloan to apply it. So I am using a sponge brush to apply the paint onto the stencil, and as you can see, I am dabbing it, not rubbing it, because you don't want to rub it because otherwise it's going to make a mess. So there were a couple spots that the paint went on where it wasn't supposed to, so I am just taking some of that spray painting a little bit into the lid, and just taking a sponge brush that looks like eye makeup applicator, and just dabbing it on to cover it up. Next, I am taking a piece of sandpaper and just roughing up certain areas so it looks like it's aged and antiqued. I absolutely love the way this watering can turned out, and I think it's gonna be a great addition to my decor. For my next project, I cut up 3 pieces of scrap wood that I had left over from a different project and spray painted them with the same chalk paint. This is just faster than painting them, and I am doing 3 sides and the top. I'm not doing the bottom. And then while that was drying, I have had this piece that I cut off from a last project I was working on. I cut that off. It was actually a part that goes inside a toilet plunger, and I wasn't using it. Luckily, I saved it, and then I came up with an idea to make a honeycomb spoon. So I took apart an old paintbrush and took that wood piece of the paintbrush and glued it on to that piece from the toilet plunger. I think this ended up fabulous. It looks exactly like one I have for my honey. So once these pieces of wood were dry, I move on to assembling. What I'm doing is creating a book stack that I want to use on my tier tray, my summer tier tray. So I am going to glue these together. You just want to make sure that all the painted sides are what's showing, not the unpainted side. Once they were all glued together, I took my marker and just wrote "sweet like honey," and I also drew a little bee. I took out all these different markers because I wasn't sure which one was going to work the best. And first time was a charm this time around. Once I was done with that, I take a piece of rope and wrap it all the way around several times. Once I reach the end, I leave a little bit of each side on there so I can tie the little honey spoon on it. To finish it off, I apply some dripping hot glue on it so it looks like it's dripping off, and then I add a little bit of yellow paint, rub it on with a cloth, and then add a little bit more of the hot glue over it just so it's not so bright, but I wanted it to look like honey. I think this turned out so cute and it's gonna look so good on my tier tray. For this project, I have this piece of plaque from the Dollarama. I've had it for a while, and I'm going to apply a very light coat of white acrylic paint, and I'm going to use a sponge brush to apply it, and I'm also going to take a rag and just rub any extra paint that was on it off. I found this image online. I just googled vintage lemonade free printable, and I printed it off, and then I'm going to cut everything out individually just so I can fit it onto that piece of wood. To glue it on, I am using some Mod Podge, and I'm going to apply it on the bottom and on the top. And you kind of want to play around with it a little bit to make sure that everything fits if your piece of wood is that as small as mine. I love the way the sign turned out. I think it's very summery and I can't wait to use it in my decor. I am showing you today how I'm going to use these pretty neat Dollar Tree calendars. They're brand new this year. Our Dollar Tree never actually had any last year like this, so I am excited that I finally got some and I'm able to do some crafting with it. For the very first one, I will be using this truck, but it's actually on the other side is the fall version of this truck, and as well as this round. Now, I picked up this round off of Kijiji, Facebook Marketplace, but you can find thinner ones at a dollar store as well, or you can just use a stovetop cover woodwork as well. And I'm going to add a coat of white paint. I am using the Annie Sloan Old White. I'm not going for full coverage, but I will be rubbing this paint in with the rag as well, just to blend it in and thin it out a little bit. This will give it, this will make the wood show through. And what I'm trying to do is match up the wood paneling that's on the picture. I actually haven't been lucky enough to find these calendars. My sister found them as well as my friend Sandra. So it was a joint effort from them to get me these calendars. So I thank them for that, because otherwise I wouldn't have any, because every time I go, they don't have any. So once I had the white paint down the way I wanted it, I ended up adding some of this Stormy Gray acrylic paint as well as black acrylic paint, kind of mixture, because I wanted a bit of a darker gray and I didn't have any darker gray on hand, so I had mixed these two. And I'm going to dry brush it with just a kind of a stippling brush. And if you don't know what dry brushing is, you dip the brush into the paint and then take most of the paint off, so your brush is fairly dry and has just a touch of paint on it. And gently, without pressing, just apply this onto your surface. And I like how we kind of picked up a little bit of the grooves. And then I did end up blending it in, because the white paint was still a bit wet, so it was easy to blend it in. If this is your first time stopping by my channel, welcome. I would love it if you considered subscribing and pressing that notification bell so you become a part of my YouTube family. I have tons more fall DIYs coming your way, and I've already shared lots, so make sure you check out that playlist, which will be linked in the description. So now that the paint had a bit of time to dry, and it did not take very long, I am just placing this picture on and kind of figuring out where I want it cut so it fits nicely, and all I'm doing is just rubbing it so it folds in the places where I want to get it cut. So I finally flipped the picture over so you can see the image that I will be using, and just double checking that everything is fitting on pretty good. And then I'm going to use some tacky glue to glue it onto the board. You could use hot glue if that's what you want, or even Mod Podge. I'm not sure whether school glue would actually work, but you could give it a try. And you want to cover all the edges of this image, because otherwise you don't want any of the ends to be lifting off. And once I had this exactly where I wanted, I pressed it down, and then I continued adding a little bit more white paint because I did find that it was a little bit lighter than the picture, and just cleaning it up. And then I also went ahead and again with that dry brush of gray and black paint. If you've been following along, you know how much I love using the truck in my decor. I have one on my coffee table in my formal living room that I just change out things that I put in it, and this will be the first year that I will be using it at fall, because I did get it at Christmas time last year, and I can't wait to decorate it. And you can watch all those decorating videos and how I use all of my DIYs over on my home channel, which is linked in my description box. Once all the bubbles and everything was out and the paint had a minute to dry, it did not take long to do so, I applied Mod Podge over the whole image. And let me tell you, I am so very pleased with the way this turned out. You can't even barely see the difference between the wood and the paper. And if that really bothers you, you can always add a rope border or some sort of a border to the ends. For my next project, I had picked up these foam dice. They're large foam dice at Dollar Tree, and I'm going to be using it to create these are great for tiered trays if you decorate tiered trays, or you're just adding as fillers into little trays. And I'm going to, first thing that I'm gonna do is spray paint them with black. You can also paint them. I just thought spray painting was a lot faster. And I'm going to do all the sides but one. While the paint is drying, I'm going to pick my images, and this time I'm not using a large image. I am using the little squares at the back of the calendar that shows what images are in the calendar. And I'm going to cut out the 2 fall ones out of this calendar and then 2 more out of the other one. And I'm cutting them bigger than what I think I will need, just because I don't want to cut it too small. Now that all my images are cut, I am going to glue them on to the foam square dice. I'm just removing some of the paint that was on top of the unpainted side, and that's where I'm going to be adding the image. And the reason why I didn't paint the side is because the cards are pretty thick, so the image will not be showing through. As you can see, it's a little bit too big for the square, so I'm just folding it down to know where I need to cut it. And then I trim it to fit on to the square. I will be using Mod Podge to glue them on. I wasn't sure whether Mod Podge would work because of the foam, but it did end up working. I didn't want to use hot glue because I was worried that it's gonna melt the foam, but you will see later on I did end up using hot glue for something else on the foam, and it did not melt it. and I apply the Mod Podge on top. You're technically supposed to wait for the Mod Podge to dry on the bottom before you apply it on the top, but that requires patience, and sometimes it's just not there for me. I proceed the same thing for the rest of them. As I was finishing the last one and looking at them, I wasn't loving the way they were looking, so I have decided to wrap a burlap ribbon around each of the squares, and this is where I'm using the hot glue. And I was originally thinking I'm gonna cut the burlap to fit, but decided that I'm just gonna leave it as is, and I'm gonna fold it in like I would do a package. You have to be very careful with this because you will burn your fingers. So if you have those silicone covers for your fingers, use them. Or as you see, I'm using the makeup applicator to hold down the burlap onto the square. And I repeated this process for the rest of them, and I was very pleased with the way this ended up looking. I think it ended up looking much better than the just black. And if I left it just black, I would have had to add more paint to it because some of the little dots were showing through. So see, I just folded just the same way as I would fold a gift package. I think the burlap did the trick. I think they look like little haystacks with the pumpkins on top of them. And I absolutely love with the way these turned out. For my next project, I'm using these artist panels. They're wood. I love using these because I think they're perfect for signs or even gluing some of these things onto it. I do apologize for noise in the background. I tried to get away from them, but they follow me and my dog's chewing on his bone. So the first thing that I did was paint the inside white, and I'm not going for a full coverage. I tend to prefer where some of the backgrounds do show, especially if it's just a plain wood, or well, this is not really wood. I'm pretty sure it's like a particle board or something like that. I don't even know what it's called. Press board, particle board. And but it still has a little bit of wood grain on it, so I want that some of that to show. And then I end up painting it with staining it with my favorite dark walnut stain, and I'm just using a rag for the border, and I think this just gives that framed picture look. And I'm trying to be very careful into this little corners, but I did end up having to fix a little bit with just a small paintbrush and some of that paint. Not a big deal. And don't forget to stain the sides as well on the outside. So once the picture was all done and ready and dried, I took my image, and I am using the same one because in this calendar there were two of this truck images. One was right at the beginning, and then the other one was in October, I think, or November. I can't remember which. I think this one was October. And I'm going to cut the truck to the side to fit it into inside of that frame. I did have to trim a truck a little bit. I think it lost a headlight and a muffler. And then I ended up also, which you will see in a minute, trimming the little dirt ground that I left, or the shadows that I left, because once I cut out the letters, it wasn't very symmetrical with the way things were fitting in. So I ended up getting rid of that shadow there. And for the letters, I just cut them out as close as possible without actually cutting the letters out, because that would be a lot of work. So once I'm happy with where everything is positioned, I am adding some Mod Podge to it and gluing it onto the frame. And by this time, the frame had the time to dry enough for me to do this. And I also apply the second coat of Mod Podge on top right away. I am so happy with the way this frame turned out. I think it looks really cute, and I can't wait to use it in my decor. I feel you can't have enough trucks in your decor. I'm going to use two different images. I'm going to use the Fresh Flowers one and the Farm Fresh Christmas trees. I really wanted to create a sign with a truck and some Christmas trees, so I thought combining those two would be great. So I have these I think they're like press board to MDF, I think it is what the piece of wood is called. I got a package of, I think 4 from Dollarama for $4 a while back, so I had one on hand, and I gave it a coat of white chalk paint. This is Off-White, the original from Annie Sloan. And while that was drying, I cut out what I wanted to use out of this one, which was just the truck itself. And then I also ended up cutting out a whole bunch of other stuff like the trees and the words from the other page. I was going to put all 3 trees originally. That was the plan, but then once I assembled it, I realized that the 3 trees weren't going to work. There wasn't enough room on the truck to use all 3. So I can definitely use this one tree on a different project. That's what I love about all of this stuff, is that, you know, if it doesn't work for one, it will for sure work for the other. And then I place them on top of the board just to see how it's going to look before I went ahead and glued everything down. And I did decide to trim some of the letters as well, some of the words I mean, because I wasn't loving the way they were cut right now. The Farm Fresh was okay, but the Christmas trees, I felt like it wasn't really working, that part. So I ended up trimming it as close to the letters as possible. As you can see, this was okay. It still wasn't quite where I wanted to be, so I ended up separating them and just doing it that way. And that seemed to have gave me the look that I was going for. You can play around, do it as you like. And then I just used some school glue to glue it on the board. I thought this was the easiest, just to use this glue, because I will be going with Mod Podge over top of it just to seal it and make sure it's not flipping upwards anywhere. I just love the way this was turning out. As you guys know, if you're following along, I love anything with trucks, and this was perfect. And to make this truck look even more Christmassy, I took the little squares at the back of the calendar that shows you what kind of images are, and I just trimmed one to fit in onto the door of the truck. Kind of like the, you know, when they have like the company's logos. That's the look that I was going for, and I absolutely love the way this turned out. I trimmed it where it needed to be trimmed, and then I took a pencil and I just drew some lines, because if you look at closely enough from where the Farm Fresh is and around the letters, you could see that there are some like wood grains showing through, and so I wanted to add that to the board as well, and I love the way that turned out. For next DIY, I'm using the same page as I did the previous one. I had 2 of these calendars, and I had this piece of wood that I used for a different DIY that I no longer needed, and I just trimmed it to fit the paper and overlap maybe 1/2 inch on each side. And I just measured out 2 pieces like that, and I will be hot gluing them each to the paper. This is such a simple DIY, and I absolutely love using these calendars. I think they go such a long way. For $1.25, you pretty much have 1, possibly 2 DIYs for every season if you're using the back little squares that are at the back. I was really lucky that I was able to find some here in Canada, because last year I could not find any. I hope you are enjoying this video so far, and if you are, make sure you give me a thumbs up. It helps my channel grow. It helps my analytics and all that fun stuff that YouTube has for us. And if you are the first time here, I would love it if you considered hitting that subscribe button and a notification bell so you don't miss out any of my uploads. And I would also like to know which one was your favorite, so please leave me a comment. And if you're stopping by for the very first time and subscribing, or just stopping by, let me know down in the comments as well. I would love to get to know you better. Let me know you're new, and let me know what you are enjoying. So let's keep going. So like I mentioned before, once I had the piece of wood trim to size, I added some glue to the top of the page and glued the piece of wood on top, and then I did it and repeated the same thing on the bottom as well. And to finish the whole thing off, I ended up adding some rope to the top of it if I want to. Well, you're gonna have to hang it because it is a little bit flimsy, so it would not stand on its own. If you would want it to stand, you could put a piece of cardboard behind it to make it more sturdier, or even put maybe some wood on the back. I think the stir sticks, the paint stir sticks, would work really well on the back of it, and that would make it maybe stand up a little bit better than what it is now. And I just used some nautical rope that I had on hand and had glued it to the top for hanging. And I just love the way this turned out. So easy, so simple, and I think it's gonna look great. For the last DIY, I'm using this Let It Snow page and this shiplap sign, or I don't know how you would call this sign, but I picked that up. I think that one came from Dollarama. And I'm going to again cut this out because I want to fit it onto this sign. So I'm going to first cut out my letters so I fit this, see how they're gonna go on there, if I'm going to completely trim them or use them together or trim them apart. As you can see, together did not work, so I end up cutting each word out individually so that way they can go on their own. So I would love to know, do you guys like traditional Christmas decor? Are you more farmhouse, black and white, or do you go for more like vibrant colors? I actually have several Christmas trees. If you've been following along, you might know that already. And I like to have a different theme for every room. I do make most of my ornaments. However, I do have some of the ornaments that are special from travels, from birth of my children, and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of my ornaments are homemade, and I am actually going to be adding one more Christmas tree into my rec room because that is a new room. I used to have a daycare tree there, but it was very small, and I would like to get something a little bit bigger. And for that, I was thinking about making it like a candy cane elf theme type of tree, something fun, because it is where my kids hang out with their friends, so I thought it would be fun to have a fun tree. And my Disney tree is all the way up because, let's face it, I don't really trust a lot of the kids around my Disney tree because that one holds a lot of travel ornaments that, you know, aren't necessarily very budget friendly, so I don't want to get them broken. So I'm going to be creating some of those elf candy cane DIYs coming up as well. If there's any type of ornament that you would like me to make, or, you know, help you figure out how to make it, please let me know down in the comments and we can figure things out together. But I would definitely like to know what your style of a Christmas tree is. Do you have more than one tree? Yeah, so I started off with the traditional tree and it just evolved year after year. And now I don't even want to tell you how many full-size Christmas trees I have. You're just going to have to find out when the home tour goes up on my home channel. So now that I have most of these cut out, I am just kind of playing around to see how I want them placed on here. And while I was playing around with all of this greenery and letters and stuff, I realized that I think I'm going to have to paint the board. I was thinking that just to leave it as is. I thought it would be nice to have a natural kind of wood pine color, but it really wasn't working for me. So once I had figured out exactly where I want everything to go, I do end up moving it off to a side, just right beside it, just so I know how I will put it back on there. And then I ended up painting this, and for painting it I did end up using some black chalked spray paint that I got at Michael's, and just gave it a light light coat of paint. And then I let this fully dry before I added Mod Podge. So once it was dry, I added a layer of Mod Podge, and then I just placed everything the way I had it kind of set to a side. And then I finished it off with another layer of Mod Podge. I think the black paint made the little white trim around the words and the little greenery look like there was a bit of snow on it, and I just love the way this turned out. It is so different than some of the other pieces that I've made, but I love it, and I think this is a piece that you're going to be able to use even after Christmas. So what did you guys think? I think these turned out super cute. Like I said before, let me know down in the comments which one's your favorite. Hit that thumbs up, hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed. And I want to thank you all for coming, new and old. I appreciate you all so much. So until next time, hope you guys have a wonderful day, and thank you all so much for watching. Bye!